1.2 version brings a new node for Shiyu Defense, and you probably thought, oh, free rewards for me. That is until you got smacked down by the enemy so hard that you thought, maybe I need Caesar to clear this. Well, no, you don't need shielders or more DPS to deal with this kind of content, and to prove this, today I decided to clear Ambush node without shields and just using A rank units. I'm also going to share my thoughts and tips for Ambush node or any kind of future content that isn't a DPS check. Oh, well. I know this might sound obvious, but the amount of times I've seen people relying way too much in assist is surprising. Assists are definitely way more cool, inflict a good amount of days on the enemy, however, it's a limited resource. Of course, this isn't going to apply for every single character or team composition, because let's say you are running Caesar, then you definitely want to use assists and turn this into shields and a lot of days on the enemy. But there are some units which have a really long dodge counter animation, and instead of relying on the assist window, which sometimes is really small and you can miss, you can just use dodge counters to have some briefing window in the intense fight. You can try to use just a single unit in your team, so this way you are forced to try to dodge and learn how long your dodge animation actually is. Which brings me to the next tip. Each character is unique and has their own animations with startup frames, iFrames, and pretty much everything. Just to make it clear to everyone watching, iFrames means invulnerability frames, which is the part of your skill animation which you can take damage. Startup frames is about the very first frames of the animation which you are still vulnerable and not dealing any kind of damage to the enemy. By the way, not every skill has iframes. For example, if you try to hold down your Piper Spin in the middle of the ambush bosses, oh boy, I have bad news for you. You can easily check if you get invulnerability by reading the skill description. And I know for some people this sounds super scary, but yeah, sometimes you gotta read to learn. Learning your iframes can take a huge time, especially when we got skill descriptions such as Lucy's ultimate. It says right here that you are invulnerable while you're using this skill, but there's no skill animation for Lucy, so the time stops while the cinematic is running, which means you return to the exact same point and completely vulnerable. Speaking of fake iframes, if you don't know, swap cancel is when you swap to the next unit in the middle of a long animation. This way you can keep two units in the field dealing damage, and DPS wise, this is way better than watching the whole animation. But the problem is that your character is still vulnerable even if you're not controlling them. So for example, let's take a look into Seth. Both EX special and his enhanced basic attack has some really long animation, and doing swap cancels on these skills is kind of the norm when it comes to optimizing your rotation. While the EX special leaves you invulnerable, the enhanced basic attack won't. So if you do a swap cancel on his enhanced basic attack, Seth will tank all damage while he's still doing the animation. Of course, Seth is kind of a tanky unit because he gets a shield, he gives a shield as well, so it's not at the end of the world. However, and now you might be wondering, but you just told me to read and it says right here that the character is invulnerable while doing the quick assist. Well, sure, the character entering the field is invulnerable. However, the character left behind is not. So let's say there's a quick assist prompt from your Lucy's EX special and you just tap your quick assist, but didn't realize that one of the enemies were just charging up on you. The next character entered the fields, invulnerable, however, Lucy will still get hit by the enemy. And this time, Lucy is nowhere near tanky as Seth, so you can imagine how much this can hurt. There's another problem with quick assist as well. They have a higher priority than your defensive or evasive assist, which means that even if you are aiming for a defensive assist and press the assist button on the right timing, if you have a quick assist prompt, then you do a quick assist instead of defensive assist. So in short, always use quick assist after using a skill with iframes. This way you can keep both units protected and avoid fighting one of your units with low HP without knowing why they are taking damage. Now, this is going to be a more technical tip and personal preference, but I like to lower how much information I have in my screen. It makes easier to track down enemies' attacks and assist prompts as well. So a really good option is to remove the damage numbers. You can find it under other options. Sometimes I still use it because I like the numbers popping up on the screen, but it definitely removes a lot of distraction anyway. For graphics settings, I usually disable volumetric fog, bloom, and motion blur in the graphics settings. Volumetric fog creates a bit of depth in your environment by adding this fog-like effect. I like to turn it off for a higher contrast in the map. Bloom is all about those shiny light effects which I find a bit distracting, especially in high-paced combat. Motion blur simulates movement and makes your whole camera blurry when you're moving. You can also disable shadows, mirror reflections, lower graphics settings, or even just play with everything on. After all, that's personal preference. Now, before we continue, I just want a quick moment, but if you're looking for more Zenless Zone Zero content, be sure to subscribe because it helps the channel and kind of keeps me motivated to bring high quality content for you. Oh, and consider joining the Discord as well. I usually share some early calculations over there, and that's all, back to the video. Now for some extra and quick tips which don't require a lot of explanations. This won't apply to every single ambush node or Shiyu rotation, but killing smaller enemies is faster and also removes the amount of things you need to track. It's even faster if you have any kind of grouping tools such as Nicole, Resonabu, Magnetic Boo, or even Caesar. Also, speaking of tracking, this is personal preference, however, I highly recommend to disable the automatic camera rotation option to avoid getting your camera repositioning for no reason at all. You can find this option under the Input tab. This makes it easier for you to keep the camera where you can see all the enemies and track down what you need to dodge. Learn the enemy movements and patterns so you can deal with attacks without a problem. Hoyo is definitely making the combat harder by adding new mechanics for the enemies. Jane's doppelganger, for example, can parry your attacks, and some enemies have movements where they don't give an assist prompt before dealing damage. Since this isn't a DPS check, if you're tired and want some room for breathing and reset your mind after doing 7 dodge counters back to back, running away from the enemy is completely fine. Another really good tip is to think of ambush and disputed node or any future content like this. Every single time you die, you get more experience when dealing with them. It's not about killing them faster, it's about avoiding their hits. And finally, I know that I said that shields are not necessary to do ambush node, however, they definitely make your life easier. This is a game and you should play to have fun, so don't be discouraged just because players can clear without shields. Go ahead, build up one of them and start using in your teams. Or not. Maybe you like to have challenges and you want to play just like me without a shielder, then go ahead as well, have fun playing the game. And that's all my tips for you. Feel free to share your opinions and other tips as well in the comments down below. If any of these tips helped you, hit the like button, share the video and consider subscribing as well. As always, thanks for watching, have a beautiful day and I'll see you in my next video.